everyone. You're listening to Heaving Bosoms, the podcast where two friends recap romance novels while giggling, being the most, and seeing all of the subtleties. Kinda, usually. If you want to see what we're up to outside of the podcast, you can follow Heaving Bosoms on Instagram at Heaving Bosoms, on Facebook, or you can join our extra cool Facebook group, the Heaving Bosoms Geriatric Friendship Cult. I detest Facebook of late, and yet still, I love being in the cult. And okay, so I want to give an extra special thanks to everyone who supports the show directly on Patreon. So here's a shout out to new patrons: Catherine C., Bethany D., Pretem O., Tiffany S., Bethany N., Jamie PB, and Beth M. Y'all are amazing, and I hope you're gonna gobble those 160 plus back catalog episodes. And huge thanks to longtime members of the Patreon fam: Lauren L., Esperwind, Hannah M., Haley D., and Jennifer S. Everyone on Patreon, I'll actually be announcing the winners of 2 advanced copies of Role Playing by Kathy Yardley this week. Remember, you need to have your mailing address listed on Patreon, or I'll have to move to the next randomly selected person. Kathy's actually going to be a guest in the near future, and I'm super stoked about it. She picked an excellent movie. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm like vibrating with excitement about it. Speaking of the future, the next couple of weeks we'll be going rogue off of the reading list a bit. Next week, Naima is coming back to recap another bonkers Spanish movie that was suggested to us because we loved Through My Window so much. And then I'm planning on starting the reading list with some favorite friends. Patrons, you got a sneak peek of that list already. Okay, this week we've got a truly revelatory book. I'm not messing around. H.B. Meredith is here to recap Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. Here we go. Okay, seriously, you're so excited to talk about this book. I'm so excited to talk about this book. I'm just the most. Oh my God.
I know.
Oh my God.
I know.
And it's so weird because, like, this book wasn't really on my radar, even though it's written by an audiobook narrator and obviously narrated by the audiobook narrator.
Which, by the way, the audiobook is fantastic.
That's the way I read it. And it blew my mind completely.
Yeah. I did not realize that Travis was an audiobook narrator, but that makes total sense because the audiobook is so good.
It's so good. Yeah, he does a lot of fantasy stuff. That's his wheelhouse.
That makes sense based on this book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the only way that it was on my radar was I was talking to a friend about, like cover art and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And she said, if this publisher is going to redo my book, like I really want this artist. And she showed me this cover and I was like, fuck yes, you should do that. Like, that's incredible. Okay. So this book did more for me than just like reading book. Okay.
Yeah. No, and I will tell you, so this book, people were reading it and obsessed about it and saying, this is the best thing I've ever read. It's so cozy. It's wonderful. And I was like, cool, I need to buy it. And then I went to buy it and nobody had it.
Oh, no.
Because I guess what happened was he self-pubbed.
Yeah.
And then
got picked up.
So it got pulled.
Oh.
And so you couldn't buy it for a long time,
Those
like
dicks.
months. I know. And there was like all this buzz and all this hype about this book that then like wasn't available.
Right.
And so then it finally was like coming soon. And I was like, wait, what do you mean new release? Like that's been like what?
Yeah.
And so that was like when the publisher, and then I read it and I was like, this is just, yes.
It's so cozy and wonderful. And like, in addition to just being an amazing book, I think it finally made me understand why people like sort of make-work games. Like,
Yeah.
like people like Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley, or, even those cool like Zen apps where it shows you like
Yeah.
a disorganized drawer and you like digitally organize it or whatever.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And like that's what this book did for me, except
Uh-huh.
better. Like
Yeah.
way better, because I could also
Yeah.
like organize my own house or like do whatever the fuck I needed to do at the same time.
You could be organizing a real life drawer.
Truly, but like normally I don't get anything from those because they stress me out, because I'm like, I shouldn't be doing this work. If I'm going to do work, I should do something that actually benefits me,
Right.
Even though people get benefit from just those, experiences, I
Yeah.
just don't. But this was that, because the whole time we just get to like watch she and a bunch of misfits just build a coffee shop.
No, and it's so good. And then like, and the tagline for this, or I don't know if it's a tagline, but it says a novel of high fantasy and low stakes.
Yes.
And I was like, yes, like this is, I would like 700 more books in this genre, please.
Yeah, and he's already done the
Yeah.
second one, right? That bookcases
know.
and bone shards.
Bones.
I
Yeah.
don't know what it's
I don't
called.
think it's out yet, but like it's coming out in July.
Yeah. But this book was a revelation, because if you told me you're going to watch any being, doesn't matter if it's a human, doesn't matter if it's an orc, if you're just going to watch any being very slowly build a coffee shop, I would be like, prob's not for me.
Yeah.
Holy shit, dude.
I know. It's so good. And like you don't realize that like there's all of this like sexual tension until the end. And then you're like, oh my God, that has been there this whole time and it's wonderful.
It's been there all along.
I know, it's so
good. Yeah. And like, I don't know. There's also, I feel like the ending in the HEA is, I don't know. I can't quite piece it together, but it feels like it would only work in a queer relationship.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
And I thought it was so beautiful.
Yeah, and I think it's because like at no point is there like a DTR, like there's not any conversations about it. It's just like we're just here doing this together, and that's just, it's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
And our souls are slowly meshing. Like it's
I know.
Okay, so we should get into it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we meet Viv, and she's fucking bloody, and she's sweaty, and she's tired, and her back fucking hurts.
Her back hurts so bad.
Because this is like her 401st, D&D adventure times. She's the melee guy, all right?
Yeah.
Like
she is in fact the tank in whatever group she finds herself in.
It's true.
And so they've just finished defeating this monster. We don't see any of the fight or anything.
We're very end of the fight. It's great.
Yeah.
The first line is like her putting black blood into this Scalvard queen's skull.
Yeah. Black blood being her sword.
Her ginormous sword.
Yeah. So they kill this Scalvard queen, and she pulls out of the Scalvard queen's head this thing called a Scalvard stone. If you don't know what it is, but it's like sort of like glowing with a sickly light, and like it looks sort of wet all of the time. And, it's like, and there's like
it's an organic mass, it says.
Yeah. Ugh, it's gross. And the Scalvard queen has in her hive like all of this other treasure, like legitimately, like there's carts and horses amounts of treasure. Like it's not just like some piles.
Like
and the rest of her troop
chests.
Yes.
All over
and the rest of her troop is like, so what else do you want? And she's like, no, I'm good, bye. And she just bounces.
She just fucks off. And like, okay, so Fennis is the one who says, oh, that's the only one you want, or whatever, like that's the only thing you want to take. And she's like, yes. And she's very just like fed up to hear. And we find out later that she's really worried that if she like draws out the goodbye and explains herself or whatever, she'll talk herself out of it and she'll chicken out and she won't make her dreams come true. So she just fucks off.
Yeah. And the next time we see her, she's entering this town called Thune, and she's done all of this research and decided that this is the place. Like this is like for all of these different reasons, the place she needs to move to like accomplish her dreams.
Mm-hmm. And she's got this like magical instrument and she's following like basically magical radio waves until she gets to
Yeah,
like the perfect ley line combination.
basically. Yeah. It's like, what are those like
The
those
compass
rods that you
boy.
use to
Oh
find
yeah, the divining
water?
rod.
Yeah. It's sort of
Oh
like
my
that. Like
God.
she's just
The other day, I don't remember when we were talking about it, but I was trying to say divining rod to Jenny and Katie, and I did instead say sounding rod. And
oh, that's not the
it was a
same.
whole thing that a journey I had to go on to dig myself out of that and into the correct realm.
Not the same thing, no.
No ma'am. No ma'am. Oh my God.
So her divining rods lead her to this like old, decrepit, broken down
God,
stable.
it's a
But
shit
like
show.
it's filthy. It hasn't been used in
It's
forever. And
rotting.
yeah, like literally, like she tries to go up the ladder at one point and like the rungs crumble away.
Yeah.
Like, and so she asks this like delightful, incredibly old lady who's like sweeping what she calls the cleanest doorstep in Thune.
Uh-huh.
Because she's just like, she's one of those like old ladies that's like always outside
Mm-hmm.
sweeping,
Because
sweeping.
she's gotta keep an eye on the neighborhood.
Right,
She's
exactly.
gotta
She's
keep her ear to
amazing
the
and I love
ground,
her.
Delaney does.
Yeah. And so Lainey tells her, like, hey, this building's owned by whatever person, it's irrelevant. And you can probably find him at like this bar
Yeah.
or whatever. And she's like, well, it's kind of early in the
10
day to find somebody in a
a.m.
bar.
Like, oh,
But like
what am I
maybe I'll
doing?
go. And like sure enough, he's there.
Yeah. My favorite thing is every time this dude is spoken of, everybody has to say that he's impotent and an alcoholic. And
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
it's very funny. So she gets there and she's like, hey, is this yours? And he's like, or is this sable yours? And he's like, yeah. And people have tried to buy it before and they don't realize that the prop, like I know it's a shithole, but the property is real valuable and like they just don't offer me enough and it's going to be a serious business person to
Yeah.
try
Serious
and she's
offers only.
yeah. And like again, this place is not on the high street, it's run down, it's rotting, and
But it's got those layboys she needs.
it does.
And I don't know. What I loved about this is that, like, we'll get into it more later, but like, I feel like one of the common denominators is just like misfits with a dream.
Yeah.
And, obviously, a big theme is finding your place or making your place and
Yeah.
found family and all that kind of thing. But Viv is just like, no, I've got this dream. And I really think that with the right pieces, I can just make it happen. So it's not
Yeah.
on the high street, but it's close to the high street. And it's
Yes.
got those ley lines I need. And so, and like, I'm sorry, but in the prologue, I was like, Viv, no, that's not all you want. No, I don't care how many monies you've saved. Like, one of
I
those
know.
treasure chests would really help if something goes wrong in business.
I know.
Like,
I thought the
Viv.
same thing later in the book. I was like, yeah, one of those treasure chests would come really in handy.
Would be
right now,
great.
wouldn't it? Yeah.
Anyway,
But
sorry.
I think
Yeah, go ahead.
I actually kind of love that she wasn't like, I'm going to take this very valuable to me thing. And also,
Yeah.
she's like, I have worked for this. I have saved for this. Like, it wasn't a treasure trove that she found.
No.
She didn't do this because she like killed a dragon.
Mhm.
She did this because she saved her pennies and saved her dimes
Mhm.
and worked towards her goal. And I feel like if she would have taken some of that treasure, it would have
Undermined that a
cheapened
bit?
yeah,
Yeah.
because like the whole thing was just like her wanting a thing and working towards it and being persistent for a long time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I really loved that.
That's really, really
So
true.
she like flashes some platinum at this dude and he's like, oh, you're a serious business person. Okay. And she's like, cool, I'm going to give you this much dollars and you're going to be back here at noon with the deed. And that's just how it's going to be. And he's like, oh.
Or else I'm
Can I-
gone and I really don't see anybody else lining up behind me to take this off your hands.
Right.
And the other thing I love is that pretty much at every turn, she's doing this like analysis of her life before and her life after. So in
Mhm.
this interaction, she's thinking to herself, oh yeah, Black Blood is leaned up against the booth right behind me. And in a totally different life, I would have handled this negotiation very differently and just as
Yeah.
effectively, but I'm forging a new path. And so that's not
Yes.
the way I'm going to do this. I'm going to buy it outright, and I'm going to be, you know, a good
Right.
stand-up orc.
And like she's also very intentionally not trying to like lean into like I'm an orc, I'm big and scary and intimidating, going along with that like let me get my sword thing. She's like I'm doing this negotiation, and you know like
Yeah.
and yeah, it's just delightful.
Yeah.
So she gets the building and she goes back to it, and
She has to
like,
sleep
cool.
there.
Yeah, that's real gross.
And very notably, even though she can't actually get into the loft that said broken ladder leads to, but she uses both hands. I loved this. Like, it was such a tiny detail, but she uses both hands and she throws Black Blood up into the loft, like where she can't see it anymore.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, Travis Baldree. Ah, that was really good. Like, shit, man. I don't know. It just hit me for some reason.
Yeah. Well, and like that being a theme, like we'll talk about it more later, with that being a theme of her just like over and over consciously choosing a different way. I loved so much.
And doing it wholeheartedly. It was both hands, you know?
Yeah.
Like, ugh. Okay, so then she needs to find somebody who can turn this into a building that will inhabit folks.
Yes, because nobody wants to come experience her venture, which we don't know at the time what it is. I mean, the title does give us a clue, but she has not told us what her venture is. But you know, this building needs to be fixed up. So she goes down to the dock works, and she takes a lunch.
Yeah, she just watches people
there for like a while.
Yeah. I've never seen a being eat apples slower than Viv did in this scene. She had 3 apples, and they got her from morning to lunch.
She basically is looking for the right person, and she's like, I'm gonna know what it looks like when I see it. And she ends up approaching this in this world they're called hobs. I feel like there may be some sort of hobbity, halflingy,
like a nymph,
small folk sort of person. They're not gnomes, because gnomes do exist in this world and are a different thing. But it's
interesting because she says that he's a hob, and then says that you don't often see hobs because people discriminate against them and call them pucks. So I was like, oh, okay. So it's like sort of a, you know, I don't know. It gives you a good picture. But
yeah, which I also really liked that Travis was like, oh, like there are these things that exist in this world. This isn't a fantasy world, and also like we're not gonna spend a ton of time talking about them.
It's just understood.
That was
like he gave us enough shorthand, which was great.
Yeah, and actually, when she goes to talk to the hob, whose name is Cal, short for Calamity.
Calamity. How did I not name one of my spawn Calamity?
I don't know, Mel. You need to go back and file some name change situations.
I'm mad.
Yeah.
It would be Valor, by the way. That's definitely
obviously
whose name would change. That's no question.
So she approaches Cal and she's like, hi, I would like you to come work for me. And he's like, why? Like, you see that I am a hob, right? Like, why are you talking to me?
And I'm a shipbuilder. Like,
well, also he's like, oh, because she was like, I don't know very much about ships, but it looks like you're doing a good job. And he goes, thanks, I guess.
He says it really tarnishes the compliment, though.
So she basically is like, look, you keep your work area neat, your tools are all tidy, you're efficient, you're not here wasting time. Like, I don't know much about woodworking, but like I need some building done. Wood's wood. You seem like the kind of person that I want to come work for me. Also, you kind of seem like the person who keeps doing things even when it might be wiser not to.
Oh, it's so
and
cute.
He's like, thanks. Yeah. Again, I guess.
And he's great because he's not very wordy. And most of the time, if it's an affirmative, he goes,
Yeah. Or even if it's that's his response to almost everything.
Yeah.
Which is, which is great. So they go back to the livery and they look at it and he's like, you're out of your goddamn mind. But he says,
Truly.
and means you're out of your goddamn
Yes,
mind.
yes, yes, yes.
And so she like has some sketches that she's done about what she wants. And so he's like looking at the sketches and looking at the space. He's like, okay, cool. Like, I think we can do
He
this.
compliments her sketches like by saying it's pretty good. It's like not bad basically, and she like blushes from head to toe because she's like this it's hard to get compliments out of this guy. I don't know him well, but like I do
Yeah.
know. Like that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And then he starts problem solving with her and he's like, I think that
Yeah.
we could turn these stalls into booths with tables and like we could do this here and that here. And then she's like, wait, so it sounds like you might take the job. And he's like, I mean, you said I do things when it's probs best not to.
Yeah. So this is the point where we find out she wants to open something called a coffee shop.
Yeah.
And we don't know what coffee is in Thune. Nobody's ever heard of it. It's a gnomish drink.
The gnomish sensation.
Yes.
Delicacy.
And so Cal just refers to it as her bean water.
Bean water!
But like, this is your goal. This is your dream. I'm here for it. Like, we're going to I don't understand it, but we're going to make it happen.
Yep.
So he like gives her this giant ass list of things that he like that they're gonna need, like lumber and stone and you know all this stuff. And then I can't remember if it was the day before or today, but she goes and rents a cart to haul away the debris from the miller, and the miller's like smirking at her because she doesn't have a horse because horses don't like orcs or whatever. And she's just like, cool, and like picks up the things and like pulls the cart away, and the miller has like, oh my god, the miller has this like super befuddled look on his face, like what?
Because here's the thing, orcs are also people are very prejudiced against orcs, and so this miller not only charges her too much, but then is like, dummy, got yourself a cart but you don't have a horse, basically, completely non-verbally, obviously. But then she's just like, yeah, go fuck yourself, and picks up this cart and hauls it away just with her orc strength. And it's awesome.
So good.
And like,
so good.
And one of the things that go between Cal and her is that she's like, I see that you need all of these things. Here's my coin purse. Like, go, please, if you don't mind, go do the orders. And he says, I really don't think we're going to get very good prices if me, the hob, is doing the negotiating. And she goes, you really think I'm going to get better prices? And she's like, I guess not.
Yeah.
And this is another one of those moments because he says, you're really going to trust me to like not make off with your coin purse. Mm-hmm. And she just sort of like keeps looking at him and he looks her up and down and he's like, yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I sure wouldn't. And then she goes, okay, just for what it's worth, that was my old life. And like, I would prefer that our relationship not be one where you fear me. So like, we're just going to be good to each other. And he's like, okay. And now they're best friends. Except it's way more nonverbal and, scowly.
So Travis y'all listen, this story is slow.
Yes.
Like Mel said, like we were watching somebody very slowly start a business.
Yeah.
And a lot of these characters are really taciturn. And yet somehow there's just so much detail in this. This was his nano project, by the way.
I cannot.
I found that out and was like, well, I just need to go delete everything I've ever written for nano.
What? Wow.
Right? He just like did this for a nano project, and then his friend was like, hey, actually that's real.
We should maybe put this out in the world.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Anyways, back to what I was saying.
And you're right. Like
he just
all the characters are very taciturn, and yet he manages to imbue everything with so much emotional depth and so much world building without exposition.
And like we'll talk about Thimble probably a lot because she's great, but like Thimble says maybe 10 words the entire book.
Yeah.
And like Thimble's amazing.
Thimble's a full person.
Like, full character with like hopes and dreams and desires, and literally says 10 words the whole book. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So we're gonna probably just keep talking about how amazing Thimble is, and also
and everyone else. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So then for like 2 chapters, we watch them fix up this whole thing. Like the first day, she takes that cart and she has to make so many trips getting all the debris and all the bullshit out of there. Cal
Yeah.
comes back and he's like, I've got the orders. They'll start like trickling in or whatever. And, wow, you did a really good job. And she's thinking to herself, I'm looking at this place and somehow it being more empty makes this whole thing feel even more daunting. And I hate,
Yeah.
But that's the day that the coffee beans arrive, I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. And she's been like trying to explain it. She's like, it's like tea, but it's not really like tea at all. And like it tastes, well, I can't really tell you what it tastes like.
I mean, and honestly, fair.
Yes.
All of that's
fair.
true about coffee.
Yes.
I can't tell you what it tastes like.
Yeah. The other important thing that happens at this point in the story is that we meet Lack.
God.
So basically, there is some type of local kingpin called the Madrigal, who does one of those like, gee, it would really be a shame if something happened to your building. Why don't you pay me so that I don't make something happen to your building sorts of deals.
Lack is the charming enforcer. And he tells her that it's just an offering because of the Madrigal's beneficent watchful eye.
Exactly.
She's like, come on, Lack. Like, don't do that. And that's very how Viv is. She's just like, don't fuck with me, man. Yeah. I know guys like you.
Yeah. She's like, clearly you're here to tell me that I need to pay somebody money and I'm not going to. So like, let's just get on with this conversation.
Right.
And he's like, well, I hope you reconsider. Also, he's like wearing a big hat.
Oh, he's got a
like,
fancy hat on.
Him several times, like silhouetted because of his hat, which I thought was really
his
funny.
fancy hat. And she describes him that way to other people. Like at one point she asked Lainey about him, and Lainey's like, oh, yeah, no, he's part of the Madrigal's crew. You do not want to cross the Madrigal. You're going to need to swallow whatever I see on your face and just pay them money.
Right.
And Viv's still like, nah, I feel like I'm really not going to do that, though.
Yeah. So Lack is basically just like, hey, welcome to the neighborhood. I'm here to welcome you. And she's like, oh, it's nice that a city official stops by. And he's like, no. And he basically is like, I'll be back the first of the month, which is like in a month or something.
Yeah.
She's like, okay, we're going to have to deal with that, but whatever.
Yeah. So they make the booths, they build a giant table, they redo the whole loft because she's going to be sleeping in the loft. Cal very pointedly says, oh, well, you're going to want a bed and a dresser. And she's like, nah, I'm used to sleeping rough. And he goes,
And my heart just breaks.
Yeah, being accustomed to doesn't necessarily mean you ought to, he says.
You like deserve things because you're a person.
Yeah.
He doesn't say that. That was Meredith saying
No, but he was thinking it.
Yeah.
He was.
He absolutely was.
Yeah. And she's just like, nah, no worries. We're going to use our energy elsewhere. They put in like full ass glass windows, like up in the upper stories. They do the whole roof. Like this is a crazy undertaking.
Yeah.
And they do it together.
They do it together. He's like, so who else is doing this with me? And she's like, well, I'm strong. And he's like, yeah.
Fair enough.
And so, yeah, they do that. And then towards the end, when it's getting done, she
puts up a sign.
Puts up a help wanted ad on the job board. And she basically is just like, she's like, help wanted. Oh, here it goes. Perfect. I don't know how the book opened just there.
Nice.
Assistant wanted, must be willing to learn. Management and food service experience desired. Advancement opportunities. Patience a plus. Wages commensurate. Acquire at the old livery on Redstone, afternoon to dusk.
So then she's like, I'm very excited about this. It is the morning. And she like, saunters back to her old livery. I think at some point she like takes down the sign, I believe.
Like, I don't think it's yet.
Okay.
Like she forgets to take down the sign for a while.
Yeah, it's a while. But then like nothing happens. And then like
and she's just like
the morning
pacing around.
Going. Oh, Cal has already gotten her the stove. And she was very dubious about this at first. She was just like, the fuck do I need a stove for? And Cal says, just in case your bean water doesn't work out, you might be able to fix people some food. It's just a tiny fallback on. And also, you need to stay warm in the winter, dumbass.
Right. Yeah.
Jeez.
Also that.
Yeah.
And so she does, in fact, when they get the stove, we'll come back to the assistant, make him coffee by like grinding beans in a mortar and pestle. And then she like filters it through a lady's stocking. And Cal's like, and she's like, it's clean, I promise.
I haven't worn it. Oh no. P.S. That's what I used for my oatmeal baths when I was covered in poison ivy.
Yep.
I did, in fact, use those stockings first, though. So I just wasn't eating it, I think is the difference.
You weren't going to eat the oatmeal.
Right.
So, and so she like makes him this coffee, and then she gets real like nervous, right? Because this is the thing that she loves.
Yeah.
Like she went to this gnomish coffee shop in whatever town and fell in love with coffee, with the concept of a cafe, spent her entire life working towards this, and now she's serving a cup of coffee to somebody else who's never heard of it, and she like desperately wants him to have the same experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's like, this isn't going to be as good as it will be when I get the fancy fantasy espresso machine.
Correct.
That is coming.
The gnomish contraption, because gnomes are inventors, y'all. Gnomes do shit with mechanics that you can't even fathom.
And he tries it and he's like, okay, yeah, like, and that sort of means like, I'm not sold, but like I kind of get it.
Yeah. And my favorite is that they're sitting there and he keeps on only taking sips when she's looking away, but she notices.
Yeah. He's like absolutely drinking it. So anyways, she's pacing around.
And because, the reason I thought of this is because she did that thing that I hope a lot of other people are guilty of, because otherwise I'm just a dumbass, of being like, I'm bored. Maybe I'll just make this cup of coffee. And then she drinks it. And then she's like, I still don't have anything to do. I'll just make another cup of coffee. So by the time...
That's only you, Mel. I've never in my life done that.
Fair. She's just vibrating by this point. And
I drink way too much coffee. I usually have 2 cups happening. So
I know, right? And it's like, I know it's bad. I know that I should at least buy decaf or something if I need that taste in my mouth. And I never do. And then I'm just vibrating. It's fine.
I saw something on the internet that said, I'm a 10, but my toxic trait is I think another cup of coffee can fix anything. That's like, yeah, that's me.
Oh, that hit me right where I live. Yeah. Yikes.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So she's 3 cups of coffee in.
Yeah.
Vibrating. And okay, so here's what we learn about the Scalvard stone. So the Scalvard stone, there's this like couplet, this ancient poem, and basically says something about it will draw the ring of fortune to you if you have it. And so she like has the stone, she's trusted it this far. Part of her is so like, okay, I put the sign up and somebody's going to show up because that's what the stone's done so far. And part of her's like, nobody's going to show up. It's the first day. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
What are you even doing?
Yeah. Also, 30 minutes in, and we have just at this point told people about the premise of the Scalvard stone.
Oh, yeah.
Whoopsies.
Hello. Hi, listener.
Yeah.
Did we tell you what book we're talking about? We might not have.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, listener. The first thing she does is put this Scalvard stone underneath a flagstone in the floor over the ley lines. And the whole idea is like, because it says that it'll bring the ring of fortune to her, that like her business endeavor will work out and like she'll make money back and it'll all go smoothly, basically. That's what she's thinking.
So this is the couplet. It says, well nigh to thalmic line. Thaumaturgy is the school of magic. It's not important. Well nigh to thalmic line, the Scalvard's stone afire draws the ring of fortune, aspect of heart's desire. So what she has gathered from this research that she has done is that if you have one of these stones, it's
like good luck.
Bring you fortune. Yeah. It will make things work for you. So she's sitting there waiting, trusting the stone, and all of a sudden the door opens.
And this tall drink of water walks in, okay?
Oh boy.
She's got sleek black hair that's cut to her chin. She's got some horns. She's got some
A
maroon
tail.
skin. Ooh, she's got a tail that's like
She's
sharp.
wearing a sweater.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about the sweater.
It just seems to be all she mentions, all she
Mm-hmm.
wears.
Mm-hmm.
And her name is Tandri. And Tandri is amazing. And this whole attempt at an interview is hilarious
Yeah,
because
because
Viv
notably,
doesn't
Tandri,
know what she's doing.
right, and Tandri is a succubus, which is another species or race or whatever that is very misunderstood and people are very prejudiced against. It's like
Right.
they think they're like manipulative and like just sex bots and stuff is what I gathered.
Yeah. And like what Tandri says much later in the book is that she's very sensitive to like people's
Right.
emotions
And intentions.
and intentions. And I presume she can manipulate that somehow. That might
Mm-hmm.
be some of what her power is, like that warm burst that Viv talks about sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, she's just really sensitive to emotions and intentions. But she walks in and Viv's like, I don't know how to interview.
Uh-huh.
Um, want
Hello.
job? And Tandri's like, excuse me, I will be doing the interviewing.
Tandri interviews her. It's great.
At one point, Viv's like, do you have food service experience? And Tandri's like, do you?
Viv's like,
It's
good
so
point. No.
good.
But Tandri's willing to learn, and then Viv, very ham-fistedly, is just like, I do have one other question. As you are a succubus, are there any other needs you might have? I've just never worked with a succubus. And like she can see Tandri just like locking down, just like getting really tense and really uncomfortable. And then Tandri goes, no, I'm not going to vamp off of your customers or whatever. And she's like, duh, that's not what I meant. And like, I of all people shouldn't be making such a, I fucked this up. Can we start over? And Tandri goes, I don't think that it's necessary to start over. And Viv's like,
Viv's
oh, I
oh.
fucked it. She's leaving. There's no point in keeping talking because she's bouncing and I'm never going to see her again.
Tandri goes, we've covered most of the important parts already.
She's like, wages commensurate?
Yeah, like there's no reason to talk about all of this again. We've already done that.
Mm-hmm.
How much are you paying me?
Right. Oh my God.
And Tandri negotiates,
Yes.
which is excellent. Always negotiate for yourself
Yes.
when you're negotiating a job.
Indeed.
And so Tandri's like, cool, I'll take the job, and then fucks off.
And Viv's like, I don't think I told her a starting date, but I'm also weirdly not worried at all about that. I feel like she's going to handle it.
Yeah, which she does.
She does. It's so great.
So Tandri comes back the next day, and Viv's like, so I need like cups, I guess. And Tandri's like, well, lucky for you, it's market day. Let's go.
Yeah.
And so then they like go buy a whole bunch of shit, like a carpet and like wall sconces.
Yeah, and like chairs like, and
the stuff, like all the stuff that Viv wants to get some tables to put outside on the sidewalk.
Oh my God, it's so cute. It's so cute. And importantly, I feel like, even though people are prejudiced against succubi in general, one of the things that Viv notes is like, if I were going around this market by myself, everything would be upcharged. I would have to carry it all back on my person. Like, it's just ridiculous. But Tandri sort of notices this and takes over all of the negotiations and is able to get a fair price and negotiate delivery into each transaction. And she's just like exactly the thing Viv needs.
Yeah.
It's just fucking gorgeous.
Yeah, it's so good.
And then they go to dinner. No, they go to lunch or something, right?
At the Faye place.
Yeah.
I feel like Faye cuisine is like French patisserie cuisine.
Oh,
she was like, it's like lots of bread. It's like very buttery and delicate. And I was like, oh, so they're eating croissant.
Oh, yeah.
That might not be what it is, but like that's what I thought.
Absolutely.
So they like go have like a lovely, delicate, like Faye lunch.
Well, and so Tandri, like they're sort of trying to get to know each other. Tandri is not offering anything at all. she's just like, my business is my business. If you want to share with me, cool sauce. But one of the things that she says to Viv is like, basically, I feel like you were probably a mercenary at some point. And Viv is like, why would you assume that about me? And Tandra's like, oh, fuck, I'm so sorry. No, I shouldn't have said that. It's super messed up.
JK, you're right.
And it says that Tandra gives her a searching look and then relaxes. I don't know why it was such a romance for me, but it really was. It's these tiny moments.
Y'all, listen. Mel was like, what book do you want to talk about? And I was like, I really want to talk about Legends Lattes.
Yeah.
And it's not really a romance, except that it absolutely
Yeah.
is, but it's not really, like, I don't know if it qualifies for podcast.
No, fuck yes, it does.
Y'all, this book is the most romance in the world. There's 2 kisses, count them, 1, 2. God. That's it. But
one
like,
is the very last line of the book.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, I think part of it is just like he captured, you know how people say like try to like fall in love with your life or you know, see the romance in your everyday life or whatever.
Yes.
That's what this book captures.
Yes.
In such a hopeful, inspirational, like fucking wholesome, gorgeous way. And I loved it. And like, so you know, they're going to scissor too at some point, you know? You just don't need to see it on the page. And for once in my life, that's fine with me.
Right. That's the only time Mel will ever say that. She's going to go talk about toxic desire next.
Quite.
Okay, so
then
the next important thing that happens is the espresso machine shows
that's the
up.
one.
And Rune brings it.
Rune
is one of her old cohort of traveling mercenary peoples. He's a dwarf. And he, like, they get back to the shop after lunch or whatever, and he's just like there sitting on top of this giant ass crate. And she's like, oh, hi. What are you doing here? Also, is that my espresso machine? And he's like, I don't know what an espresso machine is, but can you please open it so I can find out?
And he's also like, I'm really relieved that you are okay with seeing me because I honestly was not sure you would be open to seeing me ever again.
Because she just fucked off, y'all. She just left.
Said, catch my farts. And she was gone.
Yeah.
Yikes. And then she's like, you know, can you apologize to like Galena and the rest of the people for me except for Fennis? Please just kick him in the balls.
Yeah.
And then they open the espresso machine and like catch up.
So she like makes everybody coffee. She makes herself an espresso, and then she makes Tandri an Americano. And then she's like, but have you considered a latte? And everybody was like, milk? But you're gonna put milk in? Ugh. And then they try it, they're like, oh, this is real good.
Yeah, later on, Cal is like, it's bean water with milk. And she's like,
but I want
okay,
more.
Just because you said that, you're gonna fucking have one, you old codger. And he loves it.
And then that becomes his drink. That's like what he always gets is a latte. Yeah. It's just great. Also, in this world, latte is named after the barista that invented it.
I can't. I love it. I love it so much. Yeah. Especially because Cal is like, you can't fucking try to explain one thing by saying another word I've never heard before, i.e. barista. Yeah. And then this sets up one of the very first like conflicts in the book because Tandri and Cal both recognize very early on that like you can't sell people shit that they don't know they need, that they don't know exists.
Right.
Like you have to give them an education before you can even expect them to know to be customers.
Right. And Viv had this experience where she walked into a full shop and had coffee and there was people and it was inviting and she was like, that's what I want. And she didn't think about the fact that like that doesn't just happen. Like you have to get those people there
Yeah.
somehow.
Well, yeah, and it's adorable during this conversation because Tandree's like, honestly, I'm really shocked about this because you have every other detail like nailed to the floor, but you
Yeah.
didn't think about marketing at all. And Viv's like, duh, I just followed my nose from like 3 blocks away, and then I ended up at this cafe. Like, I don't
And
know.
there were like people there.
Yeah.
And Tandra goes, yeah, that's marketing.
That's an endorsement
People
all
were
on its
there.
own.
So you knew that you should stay because other people liked it. And
Yeah.
she was like, ah, shit,
Yeah.
y'all. What do I do?
And this is when we find out that Tandree's an artist, a very nervous artist.
God.
And she makes fuck off signage. And it's great.
Yeah.
And so her idea is we should do a couple of days of free samples and we should post it all over town. We should have like a standing sign on the high street with like an arrow, a fancy, flourished arrow that she makes.
Uh-huh.
And Viv's just like, you're a genius. This is incredible. I never would have thought of this, nor could my hands make that art, And so Tandree's like, I just want to prep you because I do think that the first day is going to be real slow / maybe nobody at all will come in. And Viv's like, I really feel like maybe that won't happen though. Like, I really hope you're wrong. And Tandree's like, well, if it does though, I just want to make sure that you don't take it personally. It's not because the idea is bad.
Right.
And it was so caring and thoughtful and like, I don't know, it was so supportive. But on free sample day, which is day 2,
there's 3 people in line when they open the door.
Yeah.
There's a red-faced old washerwoman, a dockhand, and a ratkin.
Tiny.
Who's like a rat person.
Yeah. Who's wearing like a chef's coat and he's covered in flour.
He leaves clouds of flour behind him. It's so cute. So the washerwoman's like, okay, cool, I'll have one, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And like goes and sits down. And then the dock worker's like, cool, I'll have one, I guess. And like chugs it in 4 swallows and leaves.
It's painful.
And there's like, how? And the ratkin orders a latte and then goes and sits in one of the booths and his little feet are swinging. His little paws are swinging. It's so cute.
Oh my God. And notably, she explains the menu or whatever, and it's just like a paper on the counter because she didn't think this through either. And he like goes up and he gets on his tiptoes and he looks at the thing and then he doesn't say anything. He just points at the latte and then like nods at her in thanks and then like scurries off to kick his feet and just close his eyes and just lose himself in his latte.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then he brings his empty cup back to the counter like a responsible patron does.
That's the one.
And leaves.
Yeah.
And then that's it for the rest of the day.
Yeah, nobody comes in the afternoon. Viv is like, oh no, it's bleak. And Tandree's like, we're going to do another free sample day. And I feel like we'll probably, hook them in and see what happens. So then second free sample day goes pretty well. Oh, also this university student comes in and he's like,
Hemmingsworth.
Yes. He refuses to order anything. He just like needs to sit there with his books and write notes and stare at his palms for reasons unknown.
And they both try to like, can we get you anything? He's like, no, I'm fine, thanks.
Mm-hmm. They're like, that's not quite the way that works. And so the second day, the ratkin is back. And the washerwoman is back.
The washerwoman with some friends.
And more people. Yeah.
And more people come.
Mm-hmm.
And the ratkin, once again, has his latte and loves it and leaves clouds of flour behind him.
He's so cute. And the university student comes back. And this is when Tandree finds out by doing a little tiny bit of a warm aura at him that he's studying ley lines. And the ley lines at this place are given off real weirdly readings because everywhere else they just like they pulse, and here it's like a solid energy emission. And Viv's whole all of her sphincters clench, worried about being found out because she hasn't told anyone about the Scalvard Stone. It's a big secret. Right.
And she's like, oh my God, what if he finds out? He could destroy everything, blah, blah, blah. Also, why isn't he ordering food?
Yeah.
Or, well, drinks, because they don't have food. And he's like, I just don't like hot beverages. And she's like, okay, but you have to buy something if you're going to see.
Yeah. And that's when they add, because, okay, Viv has also went and got a slate with chalk. And she got multiple colors of chalk because she thought Tandri might be able to work some of her magic with multiple colors.
Which she
She's
does.
right. And one of my favorite things, I would never have thought to do this if I was writing this book. My instinct would have told me it's redundant, don't do it. But for some reason in this book, it works so well. Every time they put something on the menu, he reads the whole menu out. And it starts at the beginning, like, and it's all the prices. It's like, coffee, 1/2 bit, latte, and it all has descriptions of it. He reads everything on there. And then what they add right there is, you must be a paying customer to use the dining area.
Yeah, which they like wipe off the next day. Yeah. They just add just for having to, which is very funny.
Oh my God. So then things start really picking up.
Well, so that was the other thing. Hemsworth was like, I'm not opposed to buying something.
Right.
You only sell hot beverages. I don't like hot beverages. If you had literally anything else, I would buy
like a food, maybe?
Right. And she goes, hey, ratkin person who is covered in flour.
Do you know
things
baking?
about baking?
Are you a baker?
And he's like, why, yes, I do, as a matter of fact.
And he says that with a very eager nod.
Yes.
He says.
Again, 10 words.
And so she says, do you think you might be able to do something, like that here? And he says, he like nods his head. And then she's like, she's like, okay, so, we could maybe work this out. And then he nods again and he goes, tomorrow. And then leaves. And she's like, I don't know what that means, but I feel like it's going to work out. Scalward Stone hasn't, gone wrong yet.
So he comes back the next day with the cinnamon roll that is regularly described as bigger than Viv's head. And I just need us to take a minute to think about that.
An orc head.
Because Viv is an orc. She's probably
7 feet
taller. Yeah.
Minimum.
And the cinnamon roll is regularly as big as or bigger than.
And she wanted to charge 2 bits for it.
And Tandri was like, fuck no.
4 bits, ma'am. 4 bits minimum.
And the other thing that Travis does so well, which I think just like fits right in with everything else that we've been talking about, is like the way he uses language to describe these things. When Thimble showed up, the ratkin's name is Thimble.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
When Thimble shows up with the cinnamon roll, I felt like I could smell it.
Absolutely.
When later on, Thimble makes the croissants with chocolate in them, and I felt like I was there when he opened them up. You know what I mean? Like Travis Baldree is just so good at
the sensory descriptions.
And indulging in those lush descriptions of simple things. Yeah. Which just leads to the reason that I love this very slow book about somebody opening a coffee shop. Yeah. But it feels like I'm there. It feels like I'm smelling those things. I'm hearing Pendry's lute. I'm smelling the, it's just incredible. So there's like multiple pages of them like enjoying this cinnamon roll. Yeah. And then Thimble hands her a very long list of things that he will need to make the cinnamon roll.
Well, so first she says, does 3 silvers a week sound good for you to do this here full time? And then he goes, free coffee? And then she's like, yeah, Thimble, you can have however many lattes a day you want. Like, unlimited coffees.
Yeah. He's like, yes,
do you want me to bathe you in coffee? Let a bitch know. And then he takes her shopping for everything.
And again, he's like communicating by like pointing at things, and like they go to this like spice dealer. It's like this old man who sells spices
out of his house.
And like that's where they get the cinnamon. Later she's looking for cardamom for a new recipe, and she's like, nobody knows what cardamom is. And then she like again goes to this like weird old man's house, and he's like, oh yes, cardamom. Here.
Yeah, he goes, like, oh, you're shopping for Thimble, huh? Doing errands for Thimble? And she's like, yeah, he's a really good baker. And he goes, Thimble's a genius. Like, you will...
Which he is.
You will put some respect on his name, that old spice monger says.
Yeah. So, and his house, and again, like, we're there for 5 seconds, but, like, the like, lush, descriptive words, like, you can smell his house, the spicy, layered scents of all of the different, like, it's just so good. So... Thimble the next day shows up. He starts making cinnamon rolls. People are wandering in off the streets while the cinnamon rolls are baking because they smell so good. And the people are like, I don't know what this is. I just need to be in here. I
One
guess
of the
that
guys,
one.
he says, I'll have one of whatever you have. It's not on the menu.
Yeah,
He can just
he
smell it.
He like walks in with his dazed expression on his. It's so good. So he makes these cinnamon rolls that are again as big as Viv's head,
I mean,
and they sell out within like 15 minutes.
Absolutely. And
it's so
luckily,
fast.
he's already making another batch. And this continues for the rest of the afternoon, which takes care of the afternoon slump that Viv was so worried about. It keeps bringing people in off the street. And like, that's the other thing. Like, I feel like he did such a good job of showing like really good organic growth.
Yes.
Like, she started with what she knew. She had just enough staff to do what she knew. And then she was like, I see a hole here. And I feel like I know a person who might be able to fill the hole. Let's do that now. And like, I think that's why the menu works.
Yeah. And so like in another little bit, they're having these conversations about the cinnamon rolls because they sell out so fast. And like, I wish there was a way we could keep them. I wish they would keep longer. I wish we could bake them. And Thimble's like, And then he like shows up with another list. This is why we need the cardamom. Yeah. And he sends Viv shopping again. And then he makes biscotti.
He invents biscotti.
Which we know is biscotti. He invents biscotti. So they're saying he like makes this like flat loaf and then he bakes it again. And he hands them these flat stale pieces of bread. And they're like, what is this? And he like encourages them to dunk it in the coffee and it's delicious. And again, this is a result of them saying, oh, here's this need. We're going to solve this need by having a jar of biscotti because then we can prep a bunch and then we don't need to be constantly.
We'll have something in between bakes or whatever. Right.
And they call them thimblets, which is just adorable.
Oh my God. Yeah. And then like, at some point, Tandri and Cal meet because oh my God.
Oh, we didn't talk about the sign.
Oh fuck. The thing that made me cry in my kitchen. The thing that made
Melody cry.
The thing that made me spontaneously cry and have to explain to my family why I was crying.
Yeah. So Cal asks Viv when they're building the place, he's like, what are we going to call this place? Like, do you have a name? And she's like, how did I not think of a name? Yeah. And he's like, well, you could call it Viv's place. And she's like, I don't really want to have my name on it.
And he's really nervous when he's saying like these suggestions.
Yeah. And then they're like, we could call it Calamity Coffee. That has a nice ring to it, which like, yes, it does. I would 1000% go to a Calamity Coffee.
Frankly, I'm angry that I don't have one in town. I would be there all the time.
Constantly. And they don't decide on anything.
No.
And then right before they open, Cal shows up very shyly with this big thing wrapped up. And he's like, you don't have to keep this.
You don't have to keep it. I just had some extra time. No big deal.
Obviously, it's a huge deal, right? But he's trying to play it off. And he opens up this package, and it's a sign for the shop. And he came up with the name Legends Lattes. And so it's printed in script, and there's like her sword in between the line, like an etching of her sword.
And it's hand carved. He hand carved this thing.
And like it hangs on the hooks perfectly, which means he like had to have come by and measured it at some point.
I chills all over my body, just crying. At the sink.
Yeah.
It was so sweet. But like Tandri and Cal have this moment where Tandri's like, oh yeah, I remember what this place looked like before. It's good work. And Cal like, puffs up a little bit, but he tries to act real cool about it. It's so cute. And then the last day, he's like, well, I guess I'll be off because, you don't need a carpenter anymore or whatever. And Viv adorably is just like, well, I certainly hope you come by though. Like, you can't just fuck off forever because I think we're friends now, kinda. Yeah. And I wouldn't want to not see you anymore. And he was like, I might just do that.
And then like every time he comes by, like there's this delightful little interchange, like him trying to pay for things and her not letting him, and then like him sneakily trying to leave money places and like her putting it back in his pocket. And like,
cute.
It's great.
So cute.
So,
also, The
Yes.
first night she slept there, and then like later on, they keep on hearing these like thumps and bumps, and like at one point they leave a cake outside and it disappears, and they're like, "What the fuck is happening?" And the thumps and bumps are on the roof. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day, she and Tandri are sitting there, and a fucking dire cat walks in, which, from my knowledge of Game of Thrones, is in fact a dire wolf, but a cat. So it's a
A
giant
cat,
ass,
yes.
like, I don't know, pony-sized cat.
Pretty much.
And they like look at it. They're both like, do we try to shoo it away? Like she and Tandri. And Viv just
They're
thinks,
like, I don't really want to shoo it away because it's a giant fucking
no.
cat.
And Viv's like, I'm just gonna trust the Scalvard Stone. I feel like I've
Yep.
gotta trust it. It's gonna be fine. The very first day Thimble works, Amity, Tandri names the cat, walks in, and Thimble immediately just like stills. He freezes.
And Viv has this like, oh shit,
Yeah.
we have a big old cat and a rat.
Ah.
How did I not think about this?
But it's fine.
It's fine. Everything's
The
fine.
Scalvard Stone knew it was fine.
Right.
So yeah.
Like this book just like proceeds again at a very slow, like almost at a day to day, like who is coming in and getting copy,
Mhm.
and it's really lovely.
Yeah.
Lack is still a threat.
Yes.
He stops by a couple more times, just be like, hey, I hope you haven't forgotten.
Yeah.
He shows up with like a bunch of thugs at one point to be like, hey, like, look, we have some muscles.
Right. And one of the thugs comes over to sexually harass Tandri, and Viv's trying to deal with that too. And so finally they're getting to the end of the month.
And so Viv calls up her old friend Rune, who was the one that showed up with the espresso maker.
Mm-hmm.
He left her like this stone. It was like, if you want to get in touch with me, just throw the stone in the fire and we'll come. And so her whole old troop comes up, not Fennis the asshole, but the other three. And so she and Tandri and Rune and Galena and
I don't remember his name, but he's a stone fae and he's quiet.
Yeah. They're talking, and Galena's like, what's the problem? We'll just fuck him up. Like, she's like,
yeah,
a tiny gnome covered in knives. She's amazing. I want to be her.
Honestly.
And Viv's like, I don't really want to do that. And I don't really know if I can explain why. And Tandri's like, no, I got this. And Tandri's basically like, look, Viv wants to be a new person. And yeah, we could go fuck these people up with a sword this once. And then, yeah, she could go do this one other thing just this once. And then before you know it, people aren't here for their coffee. People are here because now Viv runs the neighborhood.
Because it's Viv's territory.
Because it's her territory. And like, that's like, once she crosses that line, she can never uncross it. And Viv's like, yes, those are the words that I was not able to say. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
But at the same time, she's still conflicted because she's like, every part of my being says I'm not going to fucking stand down from bullies. Like, I don't think I can do it, knowing that I could just murder them in the face.
Right. And like, I'm not going to pay money to like have my business. And so the quiet ones, like, we're talking about the magical, right? I've done some work for the magical. I cannot say any more than that.
That's correct.
But let me talk to some people. And so what ends up happening is he sets up a meeting for Viv and the magical. Mm-hmm. And so Viv shows up at the street corner at the appropriate time, and Lack puts a hood on her face and takes her into this warehouse, and then they go down into this tunnel, and then they walk in the tunnel, and then they come up out of the tunnel to the madrigal's house, office. Like, we're unsure exactly what it is, and Viv is very confused, and I want to read some of this description because it's so good.
Please.
She said, Viv removed the hood from her head and took in what was before her. Well, I guess I wasn't expecting that. The room was cozy. A pair of huge stuffed armchairs sat before a small, tidily bricked fireplace with an ornate folding screen, the low twinkle of flames showing behind. Polished tables flanked the chairs, one holding a tea service heavily illustrated with twining plants. A large gilt-framed mirror hung above the fireplace, red velvet drapes bordered big paneled windows. Enormous bookshelves towered against the walls, positively crammed with thick volumes. Crocheted doilies covered a long, low table and a luxurious carpet with soft underfoot. A tall, elderly woman sat ensconced in one of the armchairs, her silver hair in a severe bun, her face regal but not not unkind. She was crocheting a fresh doily and took her time completing a round before absolutely looking at Viv. And this is the part where I said, well, I would die for the madrigal.
Same!
Or to be the madrigal, one or the other.
Same. And it's so great because Viv is just like, well, this is a surprise, but I don't hate it. And then the madrigal is like, listen, I got a visitor, and this might be surprising given our current circumstances, but I don't abide assholes. And like, Fennis came, he told me some shit, and Viv's like, great. So.
But also, Fennis is an asshole.
Yeah.
And so I'm more inclined to be on your side on principle.
Especially since she says.
Just because I don't like Fennis.
Yeah. And she says that we're very similar, just on opposite trajectories, because Viv started as the mercenary, became straight-laced business person. And the madrigal, I think, started as some sort of domestic whatever, and then became a kingpin of a territory.
Yeah, she said, you and I aren't so different. Well, you're certainly taller. but we've both journeyed between extremes of expectation.
Yeah.
I've simply traveled in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
I feel a certain kinship with that sort of ambition.
So she's like, you have a Scalvard stone. And Viv's like, yep. And Viv says, are you going to take it from me? And she goes, I feel like it really wouldn't do me any good.
Right. Like, you clearly have done the research. It is like, in this city, that is the place that it will work. So like, it's not going to help me to take it away from that. Mm-hmm. You frankly are like bringing more business to my sector of the city, which is not a bad thing. Yep. Like, I'm kind of fine with the status quo.
Yeah. However,
just like, I want you to know that I know.
Yes.
And also like, hey, this Fennis guy,
he's a problem.
He's a problem. And also, hi, you're supposed to be giving me money.
Right. And so she's like, I don't want to, and Viv says, and, with all due respect, I don't want to pay you. And so she goes, well, I appreciate that, but expectations must be seen to. And so it doesn't have to be a monthly due. We can come up with some other sort of offering.
No, she wants a weekly delivery of cinnamon rolls.
She loves thimble cinnamon rolls. I can't.
So she sends one of her henchmen, including the asshole that was sexually assaulting Tandry, to go pick up her cinnamon rolls every week.
It's incredible. So it's fucking incredible, and I love it. And so they sort of
question, serious
Tell
question.
Me everything.
Who would play the kingpin in a movie? If the answer is anything other than Meryl Streep, you gotta explain yourself.
Okay. There is one other person I'm thinking. That white-haired lady. She's what's her name? Gosh darn it. She was in a spy movie. We're gonna get into
Helen, what's her face?
That's the one.
Helen Mirren. Okay, I will also accept Helen Mirren.
That's I think maybe the only other one, other than Queen Judi Dench, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Possibly. Although, Judi Dench is a queen. I don't know if she has the stature to be the madrigal.
That's fair. Although they make Tom Cruise look tall.
This is very true. You're not wrong about that.
Yeah, okay. Helen Mirren. Thank you. Oh, God.
Helen
That's going to
Mirren,
murder me. Okay, so now it's getting down to, problems because it's obvious that, Fennis has something afoot. And so
shows up at one point and casually drops the expression ring of fortune into the conversation, which is one of the lines from that couplet. That's sort of like a, hey, I know something, you should be worried. Right. And she's like,
yeah.
And Hemingway, whatever his name is, she calls him Hem, is studying wards. And he's like, can I just put up a ward just to you won't notice it all.
It's just a research ward.
Study it. Yeah. And she's like, cool. Actually, can you do a second one?
Yeah.
And so she has him set up a ward that will alert her if Fennis shows
up.
An
anti-Fennis ward. It's great.
Yeah, which he does.
And it's on her hand.
And so she wakes up feeling like there's a fish hook pulling her hand.
Yeah, he said it was going to be a gentle alert. It was not. But it was effective. So, I'm not going to throw stones.
So she goes downstairs and is like, hey there, pal.
Yeah. Fucking
and he's
Fennis.
Trying to be all like
Like, you did a bad
you
on
ripped us
me.
off,
Yeah.
right, like you cheated us out of this thing, blah blah blah. And he's like trying to be all tough guy, and then Amity shows up and like kind of also runs him
Oh my
off,
God.
which is great.
Amity is so great. Amity has become like the shop mascot, and it's fantastic. And
They make
Amity,
her bed in the corner that she refuses to lay on.
very pointedly, and she'll like glare
Yeah.
at them as she walks by it.
Yeah, they'll like put treats on the bed, and she'll like go over there and like very carefully take the treat off the bed and then walk away. It's so good.
Yeah. So,
And she's a magical dire cat.
yes.
Like I it is never explicitly said. I feel like maybe she phases in and out of existence. Like she doesn't walk through a door. She doesn't like she'll just appear.
That's
and people will be
interesting.
like, how did you get here? I didn't see you show up. So she could very well just be quiet, but like I feel like she is a little bit magical in that like she can show up when
No,
she's needed.
I hadn't thought of that, but I think you're right, because she's so attached to that gnome who's obviously a time traveler.
Yes.
And like like I feel like they've been buds for, centuries. Because
Yes.
sorry everyone, there's this gnome that comes to play chess, and like Tandri can't figure out who he's playing because she can't see him moving the other side's pieces, and also nobody's sitting there. And when they ask him about it, he says, "Oh, no, I moved those pieces. It was just a while ago." And they're like, "The
Right.
fuck does that mean?"
Right.
And
And then he'll say things like later on they like majorly renovate the shop, and he's like, yeah, it looks just like it used to. And she's like, well, I mean, we made a couple of significant changes. And he's like, oh yeah, I guess from your perspective it doesn't look like, what?
And so Amity, one of the only places that she'll like curl up and go to sleep is at this gnome's feet while he's playing chess against his former self. Like,
So funny. So we know that the Fennis problem is a problem,
and it's going to continue being a problem.
and he like fucks off, but like he's obviously not done. And also throughout this time, like Tandri has been becoming more and more of a partner type figure. She's not an employee. She's never been an employee.
Never.
But like Viv is telling her more. She tells her about the Scalvard Stone.
Tells Cal about the Scalvard Stone.
She sort of reads them into that. At one point, I don't remember when it happens, she like Tandri very awkwardly asks her if she wants to go have a picnic after work.
Yeah.
She like packs this delightful like covered basket that has like cheese and bread in it, and they like have this lovely little picnic.
Yeah, it's amazing. Okay, so then after that happens, the ward won't work anymore. But they know that Fennis...
Well, so sorry, what I was
please.
trying to say was like, while all these other things are happening, like Tandri and Viv are like having conversations about things and like spending more time together. At one point, she like walks Tandri home after work because it's dark and she wants her to be safe. And just like this is happening in the background. Like,
and like after the picnic, she goes up to her room for no reason. Like they just like Tandri shows her whole deal, and then they like awkwardly stand there, and then Viv says, but like there's this silence, and then she's like, and before the narration says, and before her friend could say anything else, she like put her hand on her shoulder and she was like, I hope I never make you run. Because she finds out that like Tandri tried to go to university and everybody was fucking awful because she was a succubus, and so she left.
Right. And like, listen, that was an almost kiss. That's what was happening right then. Like there was and again, like Travis Baldree didn't even come out and say that, but like you knew that was happening. Like there was just like this long moment where they were staring at each other, and then they both sort of panicked and were like, friends, right?
Bye. See you at work tomorrow. And then at work the next day, they have this like morning, this dreamy morning where they're opening the shop and they're like moving past each other and they're very aware.
Like, heightened awareness of the other person's existence.
But not saying anything. And like, it's so amazing. Meanwhile, in this like the gang is getting together sequence, there's been this former farmhand who now wants to be a bard, and he asks permission to entertain there. And the first day he flops hard, and like,
well, he shows up with like a theremin, basically. Like it's like some type of like it's like a modern lute,
like an electric lute, basically.
Yeah, it sounds real weird and harsh, and everybody's like,
Yeah.
And he's like, oh shit, and just like
Uh-huh.
bolts.
And every time he talks
He
about coming back or doing something different, he looks like he's going to throw up because he's so nervous.
Yeah.
But over time, we watch him get more comfortable at the shop, and we watch Viv encourage him to like put out a hat for donations. And then she says like, why don't you bring that weird loot back? Because I think that now they know you, they might be more open to like different stuff.
Right.
And it's just so great because we watch him go from like, I'm gonna throw up on the spot, I'm being the bravest I've ever been in my life, to like, now I'm getting a chair to sit down in and be all saucy with my folk songs, to having like groupies coming into the shop.
Yeah, so like these girls keep coming into the shop just like super casually, like, oh, let's just see if Pendry was here. Like, oh, is Pendry here? And so Viv's like, oh, dude, we're putting you on staff 4 nights a week. I'm putting up a sign. Like, I can't handle all these people just like milling around.
And Pendry is flabbergasted. He's like, wait,
you want to pay me to make the music?
I just do this though for you. And she's like, well, it would need to be more regular. Like, you would need to have a schedule or whatever. But like, yes, you are offering a service that is valuable.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that I love about this book, is that it shows how capitalism can be done right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She's always making sure that everybody feels valued, not only for their skill, but also monetarily. Like, she's open to letting people in and like, you know, truly become partners later on. She gives credit where credit is due instead of being...
And she doesn't assume that she knows everything and has all the right answers. Yeah. She's like, oh, you're the expert in this. If you're saying this, I'm going to choose to listen to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's excellent. So one night that Pendry is playing, there's a crowd, and the madrigal herself shows up, this tall, stately woman, and nobody knows that the madrigal is this lady, right? Like the identity of the madrigal is very secret. So she's like, hello, ma'am, that I've never met
Total
before.
Stranger to me?
Absolutely not. Yes, welcome to my establishment, the person I've never talked to. And the madrigal is basically just like, hey, something's about
shit's
to happen.
Going down.
Like, you need to be on your guard. Can I please have 5 chocolate croissants? Now I will leave. Oh, because also Thimble invented chocolate croissants.
Invented fucking chocolate croissants. And so Tandry's like, well, I'm not leaving you alone, obviously. Obviously, it's time for us to do a sleepover, and I live here now with you. And Viv's like, no, I want to protect you, and I need to keep you safe, and you need to be away. And Tandry's like, no, I'm also going to keep you safe because I'm a partner. And it's the best.
And this is the part where Tandry's like, oh, gee, if only my ability to sense intentions and emotions from long distances away was at any point useful. And Viv's like, oh, and Tandry's like, fine, how about if I end up in mortal danger, I'll hide behind you. And Viv's like, okay, fine.
It's so cute. And so then they have to get down to their small clothes, everyone.
Well, yes, but they climb the ladder, and Tandry's like, dude, where's your bed? Would you sleep like this? And Viv's like, I guess that kind of is weird, isn't it?
Yeah. And Tandry, like, it's either now or before, but at one point she says, you're really, really threatened by the madrigal and everything that this, you know, threat represents. And I think one of the reasons is because you've made your whole life downstairs. And for a person who loves reading, I don't see a single fucking book up here. You don't have a fucking bed. Like, maybe if you invested in yourself and you spent some time, if you spent some intention on your off hours, this wouldn't be as big of a deal if your whole life wasn't the shop. So this is one of those other moments. But they get down to their small clothes.
They do.
And
then they are lying back to back, and Tandry's tail is there. And it's very awkward in a delightful sort of a way.
In the silence, Viv thinks that Tandry might have fallen asleep, but Viv says, Tandry. And after a little while, Tandry goes, yeah, Viv. She goes, I'm really glad you stayed. And Tandry goes, I know.
I know.
It's the best. So this happens for a couple of nights, and then shit goes sideways, and there's a dire cat on Viv's chest waking her up in the middle of the night. and there's a magic fire. It's like that Game of Thrones fire in the barrels underneath the city or whatever.
Yeah, it's an arcane fire.
That's
so like water isn't really doing anything and it's moving very fast and there's nothing they can do to make it stop. They can't put it out.
Yeah.
And they're sort of trapped. And so Tandry's like throwing mugs at the windows, trying to like break a window. And Viv's like, no, that's not going to work. And she uses a bench to like leverage the bar on the door up.
Mm-hmm.
And then like, oh, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
First, she grabs Tandry in her arms and jumps out of the loft.
Yeah, she's Mary carrying Tandry, throws them off
not
the
in
loft.
Clothes.
She's in her small clothes.
Right, she like grabs her clothes in her arms, but like can't get dressed.
It's incredible.
And Viv just grabs her and jumps out of the loft.
And then she has to do a fire obstacle course toward the door. Her whole legs are getting burnt. She manages to get outside and put Tandry down.
Tandry outside. And then goes back in to get her lockbox.
And Tandry's so
mad. And then goes back in again to get the espresso machine. And Tandry's like, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah. Tandry's like, you should not have risked that. And then Viv says like, well, I'm glad we didn't lose everything. And she's like, yeah, like it's really nice that you got your money and your espresso machine. And then Viv goes, that's not what I meant.
So good. So sure enough, Fennis had showed up, stole the Scalvard stone from where it was hiding, lit the place on fire. It is completely burned to the ground. Completely. There's nothing left.
These couple of chapters are harrowing.
They are.
They're just as slow and detailed and methodical as the rest of the book is. It's just about tragedy.
Yeah. The madrigal shows up. Like, so the fire is happening in the middle of the night, and then it's the morning, and like there's onlookers, and people are like showing up, and like
Lack is passing out like clothes and stuff.
Lack brings them new clothes. Like people are showing up bringing, and like the madrigal is there.
Yeah.
And watching. And I don't remember if it's here or later, but she's like, this business. Oh, it's later. I'll wait to say that till later. So then Viv, like in a stupor, is like put on a cart. She's totally in shock. She doesn't really register what's happening to her.
She's burnt all to hell. She's got first-degree burns on most of her body.
Gets taken back to Tandry's house. Tandry washes her very carefully because, again, she's covered in burns, and puts her to bed in Tandry's bed. And then Tandry sits there and watches her and makes sure she's okay for like 8 hours.
For so long!
So good, you guys.
And then Viv is just sort of like grieving and healing for about 3 days.
And like, people are like, okay, so what's the rebuilding plan? And she's like, what are you talking about? The stone is gone. Like,
I don't have any fucking money left.
I don't have money. Right. Like everything is gone. And this is where like the getting the team together is just like, Cal's just like, nah, dude, we're rebuilding this. Like, I have a wagon. We're cleaning this shit up. And Pendry, and turns out Pendry, his family are stonemasons. So like he shows up with a fuck ton of stones and just like rebuilds a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
And like the madrigal sends a cartload of roof tiles. Like the
whole community comes together.
Her community comes together and rebuilds this place. And it's wonderful. And also, I think this is when she's talking to the gnome.
Oh, yeah.
And
he says everything will work out.
Yeah.
It's one of the things he says.
And she's like, yeah, well, like the rebuilding's coming along pretty well. And he goes, that's not what I meant, but sure. Okay.
Yeah. He's talking about Tandry and her.
Yeah. And so one of the things she does is she's like, hey, Cal, like while we're rebuilding this, can we talk about upstairs a little bit? And he's like, yes, I would love
nothing more, Cal says.
Yeah. So they rebuild
the whole thing. And Thimble had been asking for a bigger kitchen and they couldn't do it in the space.
There was like no space.
So they rebuilt it with like a fuck off kitchen for Thimble. Yeah. And the way that that Travis Baldree describes Thimble like wriggling with glee is just and like scurrying back and forth, like looking at his new ovens. Good. Oh, it made me die. It made me die.
Yeah. And so they like are rebuilding this thing. They build Pendry a stage to like just like a little platform with a curtain to sit on while he's playing. And it's so good. So this is the part where she's talking to the old guy and she mentions the Scalvard stone. I forget how it comes up. It's not important. He's like, oh yeah, like those used to be super common. And then Scalvards got hunted to extinction because everybody wanted these stones. And she's like, cool. So like, was there any truth to the fact that they'll like bring you fortune? And he's like, I mean, not really. And she's like, oh, cool. So it didn't work. And he's like, no. It works, just not the way people think they do. Yeah. And then he goes on to explain that ring of fortune is an old sailor's term for like having your group of people. Yeah. Like your ring of fortune is like your peeps. Yeah. And the thing that the Scalvard stone does is like
bring things together for your heart's desire. And then it all starts slotting into place, everybody, okay? Because all of these people most of them are very misunderstood and maligned. They're minority groups. All of them are like seeking a transformation to, you know, to go from one thing to another. All of them want to feel valued. All of them are like for Pendry, for example, his whole family laughs at him about like wanting to be a bard or whatever. And so they're all underestimated and they're all just good people.
And also, like, I feel like there's a big appearances component too. Like, I feel like one of the themes of this book is like appearances are deceiving, or like, don't make assumptions based on appearances, because like Pendry is like this big hulking loafing dude, you know, with like big thick fingers and big broad shoulders, and like he like plays the lute and has this delicate singing voice, and like it's just So the night before they reopen, Viv brings out 4 sheets of paper. She has Thimble and Tandry and Cal right there. And she makes this lovely little speech about friendship. And Cal's like, yeah, that was a great speech. Good job. And then she's like, cool. So I have these papers that I've drawn up. They're making all of you equal partners.
Because this place wouldn't exist.
Because this place
without you.
And Cal's like, but like,
I don't work here.
And she's like, Cal, you literally built this place. Like, you literally actually built this place with your 2 hands. And he's like, fair.
Yeah. Tandry's like, shut up, Cal, and like pushes it toward him.
Yeah.
And Thimble is just like, you know, bouncing on his little toes. He's so excited about this new thing. And it's just, it's capitalism done right. It's capitalism done with the interests of everyone involved. Yeah. It's so good.
The other thing that they're like sort of delighted about after they find out how the Scalvard stone actually works is because Fennis stole it. And they're like, y'all just think for a minute about the kind of people it's going to attract. They're going to eat each other alive. Like, this is the best possible thing that could have happened.
Yeah, I don't need to take revenge on Fennis. He's done it to himself.
Yeah. So the very last bit in the book is after they've reopened, and of course everybody shows up and it's a wild success, and like, and Viv's like, yeah, like I owe a lot of debts to a lot of people and I'm going to work really hard to make sure I can, you know, repay people, both monetarily and just like figuratively, like
including the madrigal, because the madrigal showed up and she was like, I would like 6 of everything, please. And like, she put it in a bag, and then Viv was like, thank God she didn't offer to pay. Because like, I know she sent half of the lumber at least.
Right, yeah.
To make this happen. Anyway, but yeah, go.
Yeah. So they close and, so they like sign all these papers, and then Cal and Thimble leave. And Viv's like, Tandry, can you stay? And Tandry's like, I guess.
Sure.
And she's like, I have one more thing I want to show you. And so they go up the stairs, because Cal built a staircase to the loft now. Not a ladder, actual proper stairs. And a little rope on it during the day.
There's a red velvet rope on it. I can't.
And she opens a door, because there's rooms up there now. And there's a bed. And there's a dresser.
Yeah, and she's like, I'm so proud of you.
I'm so proud of you. And Viv's like, cool. That's not actually what I wanted to show you, though.
That's just part of it.
And then she opens another door, and there's another bed, and another dresser, and a vanity, and an art station.
And a bunch of art supplies.
And Tandry's like, what's this, Viv? And she's like, this is for you?
If you want it.
If you want? And then Tandry just kisses her.
Just throws her arms around her.
Oh, it's so good.
Kisses her face off. And it's the last line of the bulk of the book, and it's so good. There was one other kiss, like when during the tragedy or whatever, but
it was like a really like tiny, like,
yeah.
I think she calls it a stolen kiss. And then they're both just like,
no, we have no idea what happened there. Oh boy.
Yeah.
But now they're together forever and they live together.
And I love that she built Tandri her own room. She wasn't like, hey, I like you, come live in my space. She was like, hey, I like you, I would like your space to be close to my space.
Yeah.
I loved that so much.
And like our spaces can overlap, but they also don't have to.
Right.
And you always have a refuge to go to if you need it that is
like,
yours.
I don't want to make any assumptions. Like, I just want you to feel safe and comfortable. And I want that. I want you to feel safe next to me. It's so good.
Ugh. It's honestly delicious. I'm obsessed with this book. I took notes and I feel dumb about it because I've read the book 3 times now.
Since last week.
Yeah. It's so good. What a goddamn revelation this book was.
Yeah. And I also feel like, because this was originally published, I think maybe in 2001. Like, I think this was his
what?
Copyright 22 to 2021. No.
God,
sorry,
I was like,
y'all, I'm bad at numbers. No.
Okay.
2022. I think this was like his pandemic nano project.
Incredible.
And I just feel like it entered the world at the perfect time and like continues to exist in the world at the perfect time.
Absolutely.
And there's a sequel coming out that I don't think is about these people. I think it's going to take place in a bookstore.
Yeah.
Which, like, be still my beating heart.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
All right, Meredith. What's your lady love?
I mean, do I have to have one that's not this book?
I don't know. Mine's beverage related.
Oh, tell me everything.
Okay, so now that I have the recording booth, I'm trying to do less coffee because coffee dries out my mouth and it makes my mouth click more when I speak. So
which is hilarious considering the conversation we had 40 minutes ago.
Absolutely. Well, so what I've been doing.
Yes, tell me everything.
When we went down to a Polycon, Jenny got like a really giant thing of Earl Grey tea because she's a perma tea drinker.
Okay.
And she was going to get back on the plane. So she was like, do you want this? Like, can I just leave it with you or whatever? And I was like, sure. So I have been brewing just huge carafes of tea and then putting honey in it first or whatever, and then putting it in the refrigerator. And then I just have iced tea lattes all day.
So my girlfriend has been doing the exact same thing with Earl Grey tea. There's just always iced Earl Grey tea in our refrigerator.
It's also a revelation. Like, Viv should maybe think about adding it to the
they did add iced coffee at one point.
They did. Thimble wants iced.
Thimble brought ice to make the like cream and eggs and stuff in the cold box last longer. And Viv's like, motherfucker.
Yeah.
So she like crushes up some ice and puts it in a cup and puts coffee on it. It's like, here's your fucking iced beverage, you motherfucker.
You don't like hot drinks? Yeah. That's fine. Yeah. So giant and sometimes I have it, just with ice. Other times I make it more of like a coffee-ish experience by putting soy milk into it. And it's delicious. It's so good. And it's so refreshing. It's so perfect for summer. Mm-hmm. So that's my lady love.
It's an excellent lady love.
Thank you.
My lady love is spend money on things that make you happy.
Ooh.
Which is, let me explain. There's a place near my house that does tubing. And on the East Coast, that means you get in a tube and you float down a river.
Yeah. On the West Coast, we call it floating.
Exactly. Yeah. But here it's called tubing.
Yep.
It's not a being pulled behind a motorboat or whatever.
Yeah, and it's also not winter sledding on a tube. Because that's what we call tubing on the West Coast.
Right. Yeah. No, this is East Coast tubing. So you're on a tube in a river.
Yeah.
And they have a season pass that was like $175. I was like, gee, that's a lot of money. I'm not really sure. But you know what? Those 2 hours are some of the best 2 hours I've ever spent. Yeah. And like, I'm going to do that 7 times during the summer.
That's so worth
And
that
having
money.
a pass means that I can just go. I don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
So like if you have a thing like that in your life, like if it's gonna make you happy, then like,
You can make it work,
you
maybe.
can make it work maybe. If you can make it work, it's worth it.
Yeah, I like that. Ooh, tubing on the river.
Yeah.
That's fun.
This place is extra great because they like make their own beer and then they'll like send you on the river with a plastic bag with ice and some cans of beer in it if you want.
Oh my God.
And then like when you get back, like they have a kitchen so you can get like food and there's like live music and like people show up with their dogs. It's like you can go and hang out and not tube if you want to.
Totally.
It's just great. Yeah. Also, if I could very briefly, since it is June, just shout out my excellent local bookstore. If you find yourself anywhere close to the Lancaster, Pennsylvania region, or you like to shop for books on the internet, please check out Pocket Bookshop. Pocket Bookshop is a local queer and femme-owned indie bookstore. They have a lot of romance books and sci-fi books, and they're a huge part of our community, especially bringing queer awareness and resources to our town. They have tons of books on sexuality for all ages.
Oh, that's great.
They're just really excellent. They just hit their 1-year anniversary and they're wonderful. So if you would give them a follow or check out their website or plan a day trip, perhaps.
Hell yeah.
Bookstore shopping. They're just really excellent. And I wanted to give them a shout out.
It sounds like the perfect weekend would be going to that bookshop and then spending all of Saturday tubing.
Listen, I'm not saying you all should come visit me, but you all should come visit me and I'll take you book shopping and tubing.
I might take you up on that.
Awesome.
Oh my God. I'm taking an overnight trip. It's going to be
fantastic. Yeah, but they're just really excellent, and we don't have a ton of outspoken queer voices in my town, so I'm just especially grateful for them. And since it's June, I wanted to make a point to shout them out.
Hell yeah. All right. Keep being a badass.
Love yourself as much as Viv loves coffee.
I mean, and there's nothing more pure in the whole world either. Like, wow.
There really isn't.
Oh, so good. This book.
I know.
God.